Welcome back. Today, I'm really excited to invite one of my clients, Kate Richardson, onto the podcast to share some of her experiences about learning to feel her body better on and off the bike. She is a GB track rider for the UK and won the National Elite Women's Track Race jersey just shortly after we started working together. So, welcome to today, Kate.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having me on. This is my podcast debut. So, yeah, I'm just really excited to chat to you about what we've been working on the last few months. It's clearly worked very well for me and I've had a lot of benefit from it. So, yeah, be really good to chat to you.
Well, I think that's a really good starting point. So, do you want to, I guess, reach back? So, we started working together early June. What led you to reach out and be like, I need help? I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think for me, like nutrition's always been an element of my performance that I've kind of wanted to work on. Like it's such a big part of what we're doing. And obviously I do track and road and it's about getting the balance of maintaining my power on the track while also performing on the roads. Like there's different demands there for the different disciplines. But I think for me, there's just so much information out there about nutrition and I felt kind of overwhelmed doing it myself. Like I was pulling information for loads of different places online and different people, and everybody has their own opinion on things. And I just, it was too much noise. Like I didn't really know where to start. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think I have access to like nutritionists through governing bodies and stuff, but I just think it's quite a taboo subject still sometimes. And I think
Hmm.
I had my own goals that I wanted to reach, and I just felt like I had to go elsewhere and potentially get professional opinion on that. So yeah, that's what kind of led me here, and yeah, it's been definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, and speaking on like the two taboo topics, I think one of the things that we talked about quite early on, and it's very much a like hot on the press at the moment, is this whole like weight and power to weight ratio and getting leaner and lighter. And that was certainly something that you sort of question. You like, I think I could get leaner, but I want to do it in a way that helps my performance, but I don't know what to do, where to go, and all of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a conversation that people don't want to have sometimes, and I completely understand why, because you don't want to be responsible for if people take your advice in the wrong way and things like that. And obviously eating disorders can quite easily come by in sport. Like it's unfortunately a massive problem. And I think, yeah, for me, I think it should be an open discussion.
Hmm.
It is like weight is a big thing in sport. Like it's not saying you need to starve yourself and you need to do this, that, and the next thing to get faster. Like you can still be really strong, muscular, maintain your power, but there are
Hmm.
things you can play around with that can really benefit your performance. And yeah, I think it's getting there slowly because I feel like people are more and more speaking about that side of it, like particularly after the Tour de France Femme. There was a massive discussion about weight and it's kind of been quite openly discussed. But I think, yeah, I don't want to shy away from it. Like I know what my goals are and I want to be honest and open with what I'd like to achieve. And yeah, I think there needs to be an open space for that. So yeah, it's been really helpful speaking to even to you about it and just almost educate myself more on like fueling properly and things like that. Cause I probably
Yeah.
thought I had a good knowledge, but I feel like I actually really didn't. Like there was a lot of things that I didn't realize there was this amount of carbs in this, or you could replace certain foods with something else. So
Oh, absolutely. And I think that there's so many areas that we could touch on, whether it's like the before nutrition, the during nutrition, the after, the everyday nutrition. And I remember one of the things we were talking about the last time we caught up that you were saying about being a game changer was like the Rice Krispies for breakfast and swapping out the oats for that and how the volume, the difference between those two foods.
well, yeah, it sounds like such a simple change. And I just found it quite funny because I just did Ardèche stage race last week. And yeah, all the girls I think were starting to take note of the fact that I was having Rice Krispies and they were still trying to shovel down grams and grams of just boiled rice. And I think, yeah, it looked a lot like I was enjoying my meal a lot more than they were, let's say. Yeah, I think so like changes like that, like I didn't really take into account that a bowl of porridge has like a lot more fibre in it and then that leaves you feeling really full. It's like stodgy in your stomach and
Mm.
you don't really think about it. Like I saw the carbs, but I wasn't really looking at the bigger picture. But I think,
Yeah.
yeah, particularly at a stage race like I did last week in a hot race and you're racing 6 days in a row, where fueling is so important throughout that week if you can't get it down you because you're not being so smart about what you're using for each meal. That's when it's
Mm.
going to start catching up on you. So, yeah, that's definitely probably been the biggest change this year, to be honest, in my pre race meal, because in April and May, I was on the rice grind and I was not enjoying it. Like I didn't want to look at a grain of rice when I came home from a race. So Yeah, that's definitely, yeah, just a really good example of a small change that I've made that has made a massive difference.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the way I'm working with people with food is that like it's not, food is neither good nor bad. It's like context specific. And there's a time that like the oats and you want that dish and that meal to be really, really filling and to last a long time. And there's a time that you just want it to be like available to you now and to be able to get lots of energy and lots of calories. And it really then comes back to the training that you're doing, whether you're doing 10 hours or 20 hours, and how you feel around that impacts how you recover and how you cope with that training load, which influences obviously then how you get to how you are when you get to your races, if racing is something you're up to.
Yeah, like, definitely it's just about being smart about when you're having what, when. Even I remember you saying when I did a one-day race in France, it's like, if you wanna stop at a coffee shop, have a pastry then, like, during your recovery ride before the
Yeah,
race, because that's getting your carb needs, but then you're also getting a treat that you want as well, and it's like, it's
yeah,
not about sacrificing food groups or, like, cutting them out and being like, "This is a bad food and this is a good one." It's
no,
simply just about working it around. There's always a time and a place for something. It's just about putting it in the correct place. And yeah, I think that's a difference that I've made as well. It's like if I've had a big ride, then I've just made sure I've had more carbs at dinner time, more
mm,
carbs in the breakfast before that ride. And then if I've got an easier day, then I could maybe have something like potatoes for dinner instead of
mm,
rice or pasta. And again, like just looking at the different carbs, like they all give you different things. And it's just,
yeah.
yeah, it's a really simple change, and as I say, it was just too much information and overwhelming when it's actually really simple. Like, if you just
Yeah.
simplify it, it makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely. I think there's especially there is so much mess and so much noise and this is good and this is bad. And if you listen to everything that you just get to that point, you're like, I can't eat anything because everything's bad for me. And it's for a lot of people that is very scary and like it just makes you feel stuck. And so one of the things I love doing with people is like, let's just simplify things and make it realistic and achievable for you so that you can enjoy your time when you're on the road. You can enjoy your time when you're on your holidays or with your family or if you're at work or training or whatever. And absolutely, like if you're on holidays or you're visiting a different country compared to where you typically live, like let's look at including those foods because yeah, that croissant or pastry might have the same numbers from a macronutrients perspective as an energy bar, but it probably is a lot tastier and then you'll enjoy it and it becomes part of the memory. And from that, it's soul food in a way, but it's providing the nutritional needs that you have. You're probably not going to eat it while you're racing, but in like those easier rides or recovery rides before or after the training, the racings that are blocked, it's perfect. And then also means it's easier when you get into an off season or a period of time that you're not racing so much because you aren't necessarily feeling like you've missed out or you've been deprived. Like, quick, you got to cram all those foods into this like short block of time when you're allowed to eat them again.
Yeah, and as you say, like, that's kind of how I was feeling when I was coming back from long rides, like, particularly last winter. It wasn't intentional, but I guess I really underestimated how much food we actually need to be consuming when we're doing a 5-hour ride and freezing cold, like, with intense efforts. It's a lot more than what I thought I was eating enough
Hmm.
because it just seems like a ridiculous amount of food.
Hmm.
I wasn't anywhere near that, like, I was probably on, like, 30, 40 grams an hour of carbs for, like, a
Hmm.
5-hour ride,
Yeah.
and I wondered why, like, in the last 2.5 hours, I would just be going in a hole, and then particularly I'd notice at the start of my training week, I'd feel good, and as it kept on going to from Monday to Sunday, like, the quality started to dip, and
Hmm.
then I'd always get home from those sort of rides and be really, really hungry around, like, 4 PM, 5 PM, and it's just, like, this endless pit of hunger. And then, yeah, it's just like what's in the cupboards, like I need to eat like whatever's in sight kind of thing. And it was just kind of that sort of cycle. And
Hmm.
I like just increasing the amount of carbs that I have on the bike. It's just, I'm able to go for as long. If someone told me I had to do an extra hour once I got back from a 5-hour ride,
Hmm.
I'm confident I'd be able to do that because
Yeah.
I'm not feeling so empty. And yeah, like from a perspective of planning food and sort of knowing what you're going to have when, like going to a race, like I just found it really, really convenient and helpful. Like when you gave me sort of a carb loading plan when I went out to a race, and it's like, when you go to a race, you know what your pre-race ride is going to be. You plan out of all of the training, so why not plan out all of the food as well?
Yeah.
Because that's just as important. And it just took away another stress, like another thing for me to think about. And yeah, that was super helpful. And it's
Yeah.
just like having a better planning ahead, I guess, is a big change that I've made as well. Knowing how much I'm going to need on the bike for the night before, for the day that that's coming. And yeah, at a race, I've now got that nailed and how many carbs I need the day before, how I'm going to distribute it throughout the day. And yeah,
Mm.
it's a game changer.
Absolutely, and that carb loading one, I think when I was doing my research for my doctorate, it was an interesting one because I found that the people that were most likely to actually hit the targets were the people that had a plan and had it written down and were actively recording it, because I think it's so easy to underestimate how much we're eating at times and be like, "Oh, that'll do," and then you start recording or making note of how much food you need to eat to get that 500, 600 grams of carbs into carb load properly. And you're like, "Oh, like, I can't just, like, leave it to the last minute. I've gotta eat almost, like, double the breakfast," and that's where it's being strategic with playing around with the types of foods, because you might not be physically able to eat double your breakfast, but you could probably get like a liter of orange juice or apple juice sort of, like, sprinkled throughout the day, and that might give you an extra, like, 200 grams, and then maybe an extra snack here, and by front loading it, having more in the day, it means you can have your normal dinner versus, like, the standard, like, oh, go have a crazy big bowl of pasta, go to bed feeling super bloated, wake up on race day still feeling bloated and blocked up, and it just continues on.
Yeah, exactly. And with the amount of travel that we need to do as well, like to and from races, you don't want to be in a position where it's the day before a race, you're in an
Yeah.
airport and you've not sort of thought ahead and you need
Mm.
that carb load to be happening then. So if you've only got
Yeah.
like a small little porridge pot from Pret available, that's not going to cut it. And it's probably not going
Yeah.
to make me feel as good as I could come race day. And
Yeah.
yeah, as you said, with like the orange juice and things like that, that kind of touches on educate myself a bit more. Like it seems ridiculous, but when I had a glass of orange juice, I almost just classed it as a drink. Like I kind of forgot, yeah, I could actually get carbs from that. Like
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it at all. And I don't know
Yeah.
why. I just didn't make that connection. Yeah, particularly again, like last week, that made a difference because it was hot. Like I really don't want to be having a big carby, like a big bit of bread or something like that. And it's going to feel like it's in my stomach. Like if I can just have a nice cold glass of orange juice and that's going to give me the same thing, like carbs that I need, like why wouldn't I do that? It's the easier option.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just been like a very educational time, I guess. Like I've just been having a better understanding of my
Yeah.
body, what it needs, individualizing it for me, and then yeah, just coming up with my own plans. And yeah, as I
Yeah.
say, it just takes another stress out of your day. Like you don't need to think, I know I'm having this then, I know I'm having that at lunch, dinner, on bike, and yeah,
Mm.
it's way better.
Absolutely. And I think this is where, like, for me, the tracking isn't like you must do it every single day for the rest of your life. No, not at all. Like, for some people, that is helpful. But for the biggest benefit I find with the tracking periodically is to give you strategic plans for specific days when you're like, okay, I've got a crit tomorrow. This is nationals. This is worlds. This is like a really big, important day for me. So I want to ensure that I'm well fueled, well prepared, and I've got as much energy available to perform my best on that day versus like, "Oh, it'll be alright," kinda thing, and you start making these notes and recording, and sometimes you're like, "I could eat more of that than I thought," or, "Oh, maybe I need to eat a little bit less of that food than I thought." Doesn't mean you have to cut it out completely, but you start understanding what's in food, and I think that awareness piece of like, "Oh, okay, that's what's in that," and like whether it's the Coke or the orange juice or the biscuits or the crackers, and you start understanding like, oh, I could swap like these little crackers, like rice cakes that I'm having with cheese. Like, oh, that's got the same amount of energy in this tiny amount of food as this whole big plate of pasta or rice. But I feel so much fuller from that other plate versus the snacks. But actually, they're providing the same amount of energy. So there's a time when one will be helpful and one won't be.
Yeah, definitely. And with the tracking thing, like you just get used to what it looks like on a plate.
Mm,
And for me, I'll track. Last week, I tracked that whole week so I can use that as a reference point. Like, did I feel good? Did I feel bad?
mm,
And then next time, if I've got like a heavy, I think that's been good when I've been having the conversations with you. Like, I think for our next catch up, I'm going to be at home for a sustained period of time, which I've
yeah.
not really been since the season's been so full on. Just picking and choosing that, like it doesn't need to be regimented, like
Mm,
weighing everything. But I'd say that's also like a really positive shift I've seen in general.
okay.
Just in cycling is before you'd almost get stared at, like if you had your scales and they'd be like you've
Yeah.
got an issue, like you shouldn't why are you weighing your food kind of thing. But I think
Mm,
it's actually really been a really healthy change that I've definitely noticed in the
okay.
peloton in general, where like people are weighing their food because they're making sure they're getting enough and people are kind of like switching their mindset on that. And I
Yeah.
think I've sort of Yeah, it's like people it doesn't mean that you're trying to restrict, it actually means you're trying to make sure you're fueling the tank, like, as optimally as you can. That's just been a
Yeah.
really like, that was just a point I kind of thought of, like, that's been a massive shift that I've sort of seen, and the
Yeah.
tracking definitely has its time and place, but I don't think it needs to be seen as a negative thing. Like, I've now got a really good bank of data to look back on from
Mm,
races and heavy training blocks where I've maybe felt good, I've maybe not had enough, and
mm,
then that's ultimately what's kind of led to me having a pretty successful season, I'd say. Like, my power
mm.
numbers have all improved since I
Mm.
started speaking to you, which I don't think is freak timing. I think it's just been those changes that have allowed me to have a lot more in the tank and a lot more to give.
Yeah, I remember like a few of the conversations of these races, and you're like, wow, at the end of it, like I could still sprint, and the best numbers were at the end of so many hours of training. And by that consistent fueling is allowing you to still have ability to perform at a higher intensity at the end, which in a race situation, you want to be available at the pointy end of the race, and you want to have some spare matches left to be able to sprint if you're in that position. And that's the beauty of fueling better, is that you're less likely to get there just running on fumes, which only lasts so long and usually not to the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what I was struggling with. Like, the last two seasons, like 23 and 4, I just couldn't like really like when I went out in Europe, I really struggled with the level. Like, I just would feel good for an hour and
Yeah.
just like sort of my form would just deplete. Yeah, exactly. And I think I probably wasn't being smart about like what I could take in my pockets as well. Like, and
Mm,
you need to sort of think about these sort of things where it's chaotic in a bunch. Like, you need to be getting something that's very easy to take out your pocket and have while there's a lot of things going around you. And
mm,
that's why, like, I've sort of looked at gels that have more carb content in it than just like
yeah.
30 grams. Like, I'm getting super gels that have 45, and it sounds like a really small change, but I'd say
Yeah.
that's a big difference because
Yeah.
like, if I only have a certain amount of time to take that one gel, at least I'm getting 15 grams more. Or
Yeah.
like, yeah, I've put more carbs in my bottles,
Mm,
and yeah, making
yeah.
sure I'm having like carb in my warm up bottle just to get it in before I'm starting to race. So yeah.
Yeah. That was, I think, one of the things I found with the during. I think when I was doing my research, the day before the carb loading and the during, or the two areas where there was so much room to grow for people, and it was the access and availability to it. So, like, yeah, if you're in a crit, or if the weather's crazy because it's a classic sort of race, you may not have the capacity to put your hand in your pocket, get it out, and consume it before something chaotic happens in the bunch. And so if you've got something a bit more smaller, a bit concentrated, like the drink mix, a super carb mix in your bottle, every mouthful you get has just got more energy. And if you're consuming fluid during that race anyway, like, why wouldn't you try and have a little bit extra fuel? Because it just helps with the performance element at the end of the race versus just water on its own.
Well, I remember having that discussion with you actually before the crit, where I was just putting water on my bike, or water with a hydro tab on my bike, because
Mm,
it's only 50 minutes. So, but then when you actually look at it, it's 50 minutes full gas. Like, the logic doesn't make sense. Like, it's not the same as an hour's easy spin. Like,
hmm.
you are actually burning a lot of carbs. And
Yeah.
again, like, I just didn't make that connection. Like,
Mm,
it seems now I'm just like, well, obviously. But at the time I was just thinking, oh, I don't need that. Like, I've had my
yeah.
dinner before it, so I don't need any carbs like in my bottle. But then that's
Yeah.
what I changed for nationals and the whole crit series is I had 80 grams in my bottle. And like, you're not going to get through all of that. But every time I was sipping, I was getting a top
Yeah.
up, and I'd have a chew on the start line. And yeah, like, my sprinting power, I'd say, is something that's improved massively. And I
Yeah.
used to not be able to, I couldn't display like my sprint
Yeah.
at the end of an intense race because I was just clearly didn't have
Empty.
the energy. But
Yeah.
yeah, like, consistently I had a very good crit season and I was coping very well with the intensity. And yeah, like, just making that change has really gave me like some really good results. So yeah,
Yeah.
something works.
No, and this is, I mean, this is why I was doing that research in the first place. I'm like, why are people intentionally avoiding the best performance enhancer ever? Like, this just makes such a big difference. Like, why do people not want to use it? It just makes no sense to me. And like,
No.
how do we change behavior and convince people to try it? And even the warm ups. If you're doing a warm up, like, why don't you feel like that? Sometimes people are burning 400 or 500 calories on a warm up before a race. It's like, well, fuel it, like, because you'll feel better, you'll get, and you'll have more available still for the race. Whereas if you empty so many matches during that warm up, then it's compromising your performance when you get to like the race part, which you're being judged on and you're being compared to everybody else against.
Yeah, I think that links into the planning ahead. Like, if you
Yeah.
don't put that together, yeah, a warm up is going to burn a lot of calories. It's easy to forget when it's a chaotic race day and things are going
Mm,
on that I actually do need all of this to
yeah,
perform. Just, yeah, having that clear in your head is almost like autopilot. Like I know, like in a race that I want 15 minutes off the bike before my warm up. I've got that
yeah,
dialed in. Like I know
yeah,
what my pre-race routine is on the bike. So like I
yeah,
feel like I've now dialed in on the nutrition. Like I know for a crit, this is what I want for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For a road race, this is what I want for a stage race. And that's been really nice to piece that together. Like I'm someone that likes a plan and I like to see it all and I like it to be laid out and just having that clarity in my mind. Yeah.
yeah,
Like it's easy to miss. It's an easy mistake to make that if you're not having anything in your warm up, you're already probably going to the start line a bit emptier than you should be. So
yeah.
yeah.
And I think also, like you were saying before about like the changes between like I don't need it, learning to just like actually I do need it, and how before you're probably racing training on like 30, 40 grams, like sort of these really negligible small amounts and thinking that's enough, that's plenty. And I think when we started working together, you already had some metabolic data of like testing of your carb and fat utilization and how much you're using at each level of intensity and power. And I think for me, like I always love using people, like obviously I can show you like my data, I can show you like averages of other people, but what I see in practice generally once people are doing FDP, like they're burning about 900 calories per hour and it's like 150 plus 200 grams of carbs per hour, huge quantities that we physically can't match and
Yeah.
consume. And so I love it when people have that data available and can be like, okay, this is you. Like, look, when you're doing this intensity, you're burning 60 grams an hour at that on that easy ride. On this one, you're burning 95. On this one, you're burning 150. So if you're only having 20, this is why you experience this fatigue when you get to this point after so many minutes. Like, yeah, you've run out of energy. There's nothing left.
Yeah, I mean, it was so helpful to see that and talk through that data with you because
Hmm.
I've done like a few lab tests. And to be honest, I didn't really understand that because that's not so much what we focus on when we discuss it. It's like
Yeah,
we more focus on your power ranges, like, is this improved, is that? And like that information was right there for me to see, but I didn't really
yeah,
understand what that meant. So it was no use to me until I had the
yeah,
guidance of you to be like, well, this is what that means. This is what this means. And then that paints like a completely clear picture. Yeah,
yeah,
that goes back to the crits, like, then I really realized how much I'm burning in that
yeah,
short period of time, which I
yeah,
probably couldn't have comprehended before. It's just really easy to, when that data's in front of you, to have a much better understanding of that. So, yeah, I think just utilizing things like that and the more data, the better with things like that, because,
yeah,
yeah, it's just, it paints a much clearer picture of what's actually going on in my body. And
yeah.
then it's a lot easier to individualize for myself.
Yeah, and then especially I think most people, a lot of people will have like training peaks, for example, and they'll have that like, oh, okay, burning about 400, 500 calories an hour at this intensity, 800 an hour at this intensity, 900 this intensity. And I think so many people are like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, oh, that's not real. Like, I'm not really, I don't really need that much, and downplay how much energy this is burning. And especially when it becomes like 3, 4, 5, 6 plus hours, or you're training for long periods of time, or you're training 10, 15, 20 hours a week, which some people might be doing, then like, well, it adds up and it catches up and you could be burning double your energy needs. And if you don't feel around that properly, like of course it puts you in that position where you're just physically trying to play catch up. You got the cookie monster, like, ah, can't control myself, addicted to sugar. And like, oh,
Yeah.
I just need to stop eating sugar. I'm like, that's just the result of like not having enough food. I'm like, of course it makes sense. I look at your food diet, I look at your training, like that's a 4,000 calorie day. And you're like, no, it's not. I'm like, no, it is. Look, easy.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to know you and your body because like it
Yeah.
comes back to like the noise. There's so much noise and you go to races with people that are built differently to you. They need different things to you.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's really easy when you're in that environment to sort of forget what works for you and get sucked into other people's thoughts and beliefs and what they maybe need. And I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really important to be aware of what I'm needing. And I think, yeah, that's probably something I've struggled in the past with, to be honest. Like, it is a highly disgusting, and
Yeah.
there's some good advice out there, there's probably some bad advice out there. And I think just being secure and happy and what works for me. And that's why it's been so good for me to track and be like, no, like
Yeah.
that actually, when I feel like that, I felt amazing in that race. And it's like, once you do that once or twice, it really gives you confidence to do that again. But then it's
Yeah.
weird how quickly you can sometimes forget how good you felt. And
Yeah.
then, like, if you start then not feeling properly, you kind of just forget that feeling. So just having that to sort of look back on and be like, actually, no, like I did that and I felt amazing. I got a good result from that. Like, let's keep doing that. I think that's
Yeah.
super helpful.
Absolutely. There's so much psychology involved in it. And we can be so easily influenced by people positively and negatively around us. You could be with a team that's really helpful, really supportive. You could be with a team that is really negative. You could be with teammates who are really food positive. You could be with teammates and around family members who've got really warped ideas or fear associated with food. And that can create that environment. Like if you don't have that strong sense of self of like, this is what I need to feel and feel my best. Like I'm doing this amount of sport. Like what I'm doing is very different from you if you're going to work all day and you're sitting all day. For the amount of training I'm doing, I need to eat a lot more than you, and that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Particularly like being a female in sport, like I came from a sort of running background before I came into cycling. I think it's just like a natural thing when you sort of hit puberty and your body's changing and things like that. Like I know when I was a runner, it's a shame to me how many people probably like dropped out because they were like their bodies were changing and then their view on their body and their fueling changes and then their results decrease and then they like get lost in the sport. And that's
Yeah.
why it's so important to have like conversations like this and like conversations in general about fueling like
Yeah.
properly and it not being a scary thing. Like you basically told me to eat more to actually get the result that I wanted.
Yeah.
I would like to obviously be the leanest and strongest version of myself, but
Yeah.
that comes from eating a lot more when I need it, and then the rest takes care of itself. Like that's not even been on my mind throughout the
Yeah.
last few months of the losing weight side. It's been how can I optimally fuel everything? And then naturally that's all sorted itself out without even thinking about it. Like I've
Yeah.
just been aiming for what we've discussed. And
Yeah.
then that takes care of itself. So it's like that doesn't need to be the focus. I don't think
Yeah.
it's like how can I fuel to get as many watts as possible out in this session? And if I do that, then I feel like I'm now starting to see the results. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, with the weight element, like the way I've always try avoid promising like delivery on weight because I've had people lose more or less weight or not lose weight when you would expect them to. But it's ultimately like, how do we optimize your health and your performance at the same time? Because they can be both done at the same time. And we don't want to optimize your performance by sacrificing health, which can easily be done. And I think sometimes people will get away with it and I'm always like, are they getting away with it? It appears that they're getting away with it maybe for a year or two, but then it eventually catches up. They fall off the cliff, and so having the right support around you to do that is really important because some people can perform really lean and some people can't. And it's like what's ideal for you is going to be very different to the person you sit next to, the person you race or train with. And so that journey of testing, experimenting, and finding what's sustainable for you long term is always a process. It's not going to be like a quick do it once and ta-da, we fixed it sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's so individual. And as I say, the last few months been a massive learning for me, like just understanding myself and my body and what I need. And I'm sure there's plenty more learning to go. Like it's very much like a try things, trial and error type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that can be explored and a lot of positives that can come from that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what I've really enjoyed about our conversations and why I wanted to get you jump on and share your experience about that as well was the learnings of how your body works, but also understanding like how your choices have that ripple effect and influence those around you. And so how you've seen other girls that you're racing with starting to maybe eat a little bit more because they're like, oh, she's eating so much more than I am and performing better. Like, oh, maybe there's something there. And that has that positive change, which then changes the culture and the beliefs and the behavior and environment that we're in long term.
Yeah, well, there's a good example of that actually is one of the youngest girls on my road team. Well, like she's like a little sister of the team. Like we're all like helping her with her development and things like that. And I remember in April, like she'd just gone to uni. It's her first time at uni, and she was like not feeling enough by any means, but she thought she was, and she was just feeling like rubbish on the bike. Like she was really struggling at the level of the racing. I kind of said to her, look, like I feel like we've all experienced this before, and I promise you, like just make me a promise that your next long ride, you're going to eat like this amount of carbs, and I promise you, you will feel better. And she's like, oh yeah, I'll give it a go, I'll give it a go. And then eventually she did. And then come 3, 4 months later, I mean, she sent me a message being like, wow, I cannot believe how much better I felt on that ride. But she just
Yeah.
couldn't believe the difference. And she
Yeah.
stuck to that. And then she got like her first sort of national podium like 4 months later. I was like,
Yeah.
that is no surprise. Like,
Yeah.
it's just she didn't understand, like, and obviously she'd gone to uni and maybe it'd come into the sort of planning side of things as well. Like, there's lifestyle changes can get in the way and things like
Yeah.
that. And I think that's just been like really nice. I think my teammates have sort of seen that I've made some changes this year, and I've just tried to like tell them that it works for me. Like, again, it might not work for them, but I've just kind of given them that sort of thought. And I feel like we've got a really positive environment in my team where it's like food positivity and like just better education on what we need when we need like fueling is not to be viewed as the enemy. Like, we can make this work really well for all of us. So yeah, that was like a really nice moment, to be honest, because I feel like
Mm.
that made a massive difference to her training and her racing. And she was
Yeah.
very thankful for that. And yeah, that's why, as I said earlier, like speaking about it, like one simple conversation can completely change people's views on how they're feeling and then
Mm.
ultimately get them the results that they want. Yeah.
Well, let's see, like, I think there's lots of people that have listened to this and heard me, like, say, "Eat more, fuel more," and they're like, "Nah, I don't need it, I don't need it." And eventually, for whatever reason, at some point of time, people try it and then like, "Oh, wow, I feel different." I'm like, "Yes, I've only like this." And so, like, the sooner that people give it a go and they try it, they realize like, "Oh, this thing I've been struggling with that I thought was just normal part of cycling." It's like, no, it's not normal. It's part of being underfueled and trying to just like recover and be like on empty all the time. And then you start to learn how differently and how much better, and you can enjoy your sport, enjoy your training, and it all starts to like kick in. But it's learning that like less isn't always more, like it's often more is more.
Yeah, I think it's just, as I said before, like I kind of knew that I needed to make changes, but it was too much noise. I didn't know what to
Yeah.
do. And it's not until you actually do it once properly and commit
Mm.
to it that you realize the difference. And I think, yeah, you just need to have the right advice and just commit to doing it. Like, because it's just, there was too much information out there, and I knew I wanted to make changes, but I had no idea where to start. And I was like,
Yeah.
do I need that many carbs on the bike, or is that someone a different weight, a different build, different aims? Is that what they need? And the minute you know what you need and you have a good experience, you never go back. Like,
Yeah.
I'd like to say I'd never make that mistake again. And if I do, I think I'll get a harsh reminder of why I make sure I feel enough.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I've seen plenty of people that they forget or they get. It's just easy to be distracted. Like, it'll be fine, and then you get halfway through and you're like, it's not fine.
Yeah, it's really
And then
not
you end
fine.
up like jumping off the ride early, or you're like, yeah, I'm out. Like, I can't keep up. But instead of, I think in the past, like when you don't know, like you might be like beating yourself up, like I'm not fit enough, and this, and getting to that negative spiral. It was like, I just had an empty fuel tank. Like, I'm not going to go anywhere with an empty fuel tank.
I mean, I look back to when I was younger training, and I don't know how I did it. Like, I think I was having like one cereal bar for like 3 hours. And I
Yeah.
actually remember the first time I experienced a bonk was in a NatB race here in the UK. And it honestly felt like this hill was like, I just rode into it. Like, I just
Yeah.
went out the back, and that was the first time I experienced that feeling. And it's
Yeah.
horrendous. And I just don't know how I trained how I did when I was younger,
Yeah. It's
the
just
way
like
I was feeling.
you're just surviving, like, and I think that's also
Yeah.
like when you've got that, you had the data of like how much carbs, how much fat, and I've always said like the intensity you need to be going to be using fat as fuel is so stupidly slow because you're
Mm.
almost always using more carbs than you are using fat as fuel. Is that like, okay? Well, when you've bonked and you're like, oh, I'm just not moving anymore. I'm like, yeah. That's how much. That's your limit. Like if you're purely relying on fat as fuel, like yes, it's great for the long distance, ultra endurance, like slow and steady sort of stuff. But for speed, for high intensity, you're going to be creeping. And it's not that that's either right or wrong. It's just that, well, this is how and why we need more. And we might feel like we're getting away with it, but ultimately we're probably just compromising our quality, our speed, our power, training quality, these results of our racing, health, happiness off the bike, all those different things. And so sometimes you forget, you go back to your old ways, and that can be a reminder of that lesson, like, oh yeah, it's not just in my head.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, I'm not needing to nap nearly as much as I used to now because I have so much energy when I come home. Like, if I had a 4 hour, 5 hour day, like that day was a write off. I was just exhausted. Like, I
Yeah,
just needed to sleep. Like, I couldn't leave the sofa. I was just in a hole. Like,
yeah,
now I'll get back from a ride and Like, I'm honestly not hungry, to be honest, because I've
Mm.
had, like, so much on the bike, and I'll just get a recovery meal in, and then I can get on with my day. Like, I can
Yeah.
do loads of other things, and I'm not tired, and I'm probably a lot
Yeah.
more enjoyable for my family to be around because 'cause I'm not grumpy and tired. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
And you get to live your
yes,
life then as well, because I've heard that
exactly.
from so many riders that I've worked with where in the past, like, yeah, the training, they've got nothing left after training. And so their entire energy is just spent on training. And so they don't get to see friends, they don't get to see family. So, like, obviously, there's sacrifices that we have to be making if when we're at elite and a Olympic or professional sort of level. But it doesn't mean you have to put everything on hold, especially when you've able to fuel it better, that you've got the energy to maybe you're not going to go on a big hike afterwards, but you're at least going to be able to got the energy to go for a walk and be physically and mentally, emotionally present with family members, and yeah, which allows you to be. I find for from longevity in the sport makes it easier, and I see there's so many athletes that I've worked with who'd be like, "Oh, I wish I'd learned this 5, 10 years ago." And starting sooner, starting earlier, like it's never too late to start, but the sooner you start feeling better, the more impact it can have on your performance, your health, your training quality, and enjoyment of the sport.
No, yeah, it's such a good point. Like for longevity, like you don't want to just be a couch potato and then riding and then just going in this sort of cycle. And
Yeah.
even like if I had double days on the bike, my second session would be like terrible. I wouldn't be able to hit like whether I was in the gym, whether I was on the bike, because as you said, like you may think you're fine for that one session, but what's the knock on effect like for the rest of the week, the rest of the day? And for me, that was huge. Like I'd go to the
Mm.
gym and feel like I just couldn't push up from a squat because my legs would just be empty.
Yeah.
So yeah, like for sure, it makes a massive difference, like not just the training, but just how you feel in general and what you can do with your day and how you recover and yeah, just generally how you feel. Like it's no fun being tired and exhausted all the time because you've made a silly
Mm.
mistake and underfueled on a ride. Like it's such a
Mm.
simple fix that can make a massive, massive difference.
Absolutely. What is yours? Like, do you have a default favorite thing to eat on the bike these days, or does it depend or change all the time?
Yeah, so I think anyone's on the trend of pocket fuel. Like I love
Yeah.
their baking and things like that. Like they make those really nice date bars.
Yeah.
Rice Krispie bars. My boyfriend's mum actually made like this apple pie thing the other day,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
took that on my
Yeah.
ride today. Yeah, there's like I think you can change it up. Like as you say, in the past I'd maybe just take like a boring old cereal bar, like a squares bar or something, and I just looking at it made me feel like
Ugh.
I've just eaten way too much of that. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, having those sort of sweet treats, if you will, in my pocket that are giving me the correct fuel on the bike,
Yeah.
you don't crave it when you get off it, but it's also an enjoyable experience. Like I actually want to eat my slice of
Yeah.
apple pie or my date bar that's in my pocket. So yeah, that's sort of my training fuel. And then in a race, like I'm sort of on the beta choose science and sport, like um drink mix with 80 grams. So yeah, I think I've just been good at like training my body to cope with that as well,
Mm.
implementing that into my training near a race. I've been using the chews, the gels, the drinks that I'd be using in a race, which again in the past I didn't do. And
Mm.
I'd really struggled to like digest it. I've sort of built up my tolerance. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of playing around with that. But yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, obviously, if you have a sponsor, you usually have one particular brand you got to get used to. And whereas if you don't, then you might be able to choose and find the best option for you. Like, I say a lot, like every brand will say that they're the perfect combination of mix of sugars and carbs and stuff. And that comes down to each individual. Like you test out find the flavor, the sugar profiles that work best for you. And that only comes with testing it and trialing it for
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, I think it's just building your robust routine that you're going to use in the race. And yeah, I've definitely had to get used to that, like stomaching the food and knowing what
Mm.
works with me and what my gut can tolerate. So yeah, just practicing that in sort of race replication sessions before a race is,
Mm.
yeah, it gives you confidence going into the race because you know you're not going to have like stomach issues and you know you can actually take on that amount of fuel.
Absolutely, because I think that for a lot of people, there is that fear. If they've had any gut issues in the past, there's that worry, like, what if that happens at the most inopportune moment? And so, if you can eliminate that fear by like testing something new in a training session where it doesn't matter, like if there's a negative outcome and you've got diarrhea, for example, like, and you're in a
Yeah.
training session, like, not ideal, but like at least
Yeah.
it's not happening on live TV
It's
or
not public
something.
humiliation. Yeah.
Yeah,
That would
exactly.
not be great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, sometimes that does still happen for some athletes, but it's yeah, like if you can minimize those things, you test it out, you get confident, and you're like, "This works for me. I'm really confident at this amount, this frequency, this timing, blah blah blah," and then you've got more headspace available to race and to focus on your racing when you get to your race day.
Yeah, exactly. It just eliminates like thinking. You don't want to be thinking too much. You want to go there, have everything planned out, and yeah, the rest just takes care of itself, really.
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap up, do you have any final words of wisdom for anyone sitting on the fence about fueling their training better?
Well, yeah, I will. Obviously, I know that as some people might want to work with a professional, they might want to have a look at like online things. But for me, it's just been super helpful speaking to you because it's very much quieting down all the information out there and it's really simplified it for me.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it's definitely been something I've been putting off, not putting off, but I kind of just thought I'd be able to work it out myself. And then I'd always get overwhelmed. I'd be Googling things and I'd be like, oh, but this website said do this, but then this one said
Yeah.
that. And then it's almost like you're so overwhelmed, you do nothing about it and just put it
Yeah.
off, you know? But like,
Yeah.
yeah, it got to me and I was like, something's missing in my racing. Like I'm not having the energy at the end of the race or I'm not able to like back up week after week of training. And I think it's
Yeah.
my fueling. And yeah, as soon as I spoke to you, as I say, you haven't been pushing the weight side of it. You've been pushing the let's perform. Like how are
Yeah.
you going to maximize the watts you're getting from a session? Well, I think you need this much. And my advice and words of wisdom would be like, just lock in and speak to a professional or
Yeah.
just get to know your body. Like even if that's just one session or something like that you can take a lot from it and just educate yourself on fueling because it's like quite
Yeah.
overlooked sometimes and there's too much noise and it's really not that difficult. It's pretty simple.
Absolutely. Because I mean, that's what I see in practice. A lot of times people have been following me or sort of like thinking about it and reaching out, be like, I want to get help. And then it's like 3 years later before they actually like, okay, no, I really need help. So it's like, yeah, we can obviously we can do things ourselves, but when you get support, it's a shortcut. It's like with a coach, like they're like, this is where the problem is. Like, let's fix it, let's address it and find the best solutions for you. And then once you know what works for you, then it's like, okay, cool. I've got my structure, I've got my plan, I've got my foundations, and I can just keep carrying on with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people will invest in like a training program, but like a car is not going to go without its petrol. And like
Mm,
you can have the fanciest car ever, but like if you've not got the petrol to go in it, it's not going very far. And it's like, I think it's a very much overlooked side of it. I think like
mm,
it's becoming more and more discussed now, but I
yeah,
think it is a huge part of performing well is like
yeah,
just getting the basics correct. And as I said, I thought I had a good understanding of the basics and I didn't, to be honest. Like there's just a lot of like small things that I had never really thought of or
yeah,
contemplated. So joining those dots is what's sort of helped my power improve, helped my race results improve. And yeah, just giving me a better education on myself really, which is
yeah.
always good.
Oh, absolutely. And it makes me
Yeah.
happy as well because like I often joke about how I work my way out of a job with people, but like ultimately I want people to understand how their bodies work and it doesn't need to be so complicated. Like often it is these small little things, but it's like knowing what and where and how and having that external support system to be like, this is what you need for this, this is what you need for this, and this is how you tweak and adjust in this environment. And so then you understand that and you can carry on with that. So no, thank you very
Yeah.
much for sharing, and I really appreciate your time and feedback and advice to other people out there who are also wanting to improve their performance, their health, their body composition, all those things. So that's great to hear your experience doing that.
No, thank you so much for having me on. It's my podcast debut. So I've really enjoyed the chat.
You're welcome. Been good
Thank
fun.
you.
Well,
Thanks.
that's all for today. Like, subscribe, fuel your ride, and I will see you next time.